Part 2 on 10 science-backed nutrition principles that you can live your life by and be more awesome.
Welcome to the Awesome Human Podcast, your path to total human optimization. Ready to unleash your 100%? Let's go.
So on last week's show, I talked about 5 initial nutrition principles that you can utilize to optimize your health, your performance, your potential longevity, and kind of, I suppose, be rest assured that these are principles that science say, yes, if you follow them, you're going to get good results. And also for me, the principles that I talked about last time, which were number 1, calories are king. Number 2, the Mediterranean diet comes up number 1 in diet research. Number 3, eat a high protein diet. Number 4, have a solid ratio of carbohydrates and fats, but make sure you eat a minimum of 25% of your calories as fat. And then make sure you're hydrated properly and you've got plenty of electrolytes in your fluids. Now, the reason for outlining those principles is we can use them as a filter from which we can kind of filter the rest of the world of nutrition through, because there's so much misinformation online and so many people often say to me, Ben, I find nutrition confusing because of all the conflicting views out there. At least we can use these principles to kind of ground us. So when more information comes in, we can kind of almost run it through this filter. Okay, this person saying this is the most important thing with weight maintenance. Well, actually, no. We know the most important principle out there is calorie restriction or calorie maintenance, and that is kind of number 1. When we look at kind of sources of food, generally speaking, when we look around the world, everyone eating in the blue zones is eating a very nutrient dense diet that's whole foods, but it's not necessarily skewed towards certain macronutrients. It's kind of just balanced for the most part. So hopefully you've taken a lot of comfort in those first 5 principles. And I did actually intend to record that podcast and include all 10 tips, but I talk a lot and I suppose there's a certain amount of detail that needs to be added to these points to allow them to be kind of understood and utilized. So today's part 2, and I've got 5 more points that build on the first 5. I would say these ones aren't quite as important. Like, I've tried to kind of tear this down, but they're also very important. And actually, when you come to think of it, number 6, alcohol, it can actually have a hugely disruptive kind of impact on our lifestyle. Now, I've got a full podcast about alcohol coming in, I think it's 2 weeks' time. And the reason why I think alcohol is something that I would like to challenge is because it's become such a cultural norm to just drink when you're maybe, let's just say, not working. So many people might finish work, have a drink, we go out for a meal, we have a drink. It's just a done thing when you're an adult of like, oh, you're not working or you're not driving or not doing X, do you want to drink? And the reality is alcohol is a poison to the body. It's pretty toxic. It actually takes up to 10 to 14 days for the body to fully process all alcohol from the system. So when we look at alcohol and it's like, oh yeah, it's out by the morning, or if you have a lot, it takes a bit longer. It actually hangs around in some of the tissues in the brain for a long time. And what you'll find is if you've ever gone alcohol free for a period of time, you feel pretty good, but it kind of compounds. You sort of get to week 2 and 3 and 4 and you're like, oh, I'm starting to like really feel good. And you could argue that that's because the body's like fully detoxed it as a compound. You're starting to re-regulate because alcohol has a pretty powerful effect on certain neurotransmitters and hormones. And again, you're bringing more of your kind of homeostasis into balance. And that is why I'm a huge fan of challenging a lot of these compounds that kind of I wouldn't say rely on, but they can have quite a profound effect on our physiology. Alcohol, caffeine's another one. And to kind of just challenge you to say, okay, what might life be like with less or maybe none? I've been alcohol free for nearly, I think it's like 8 months now, and I feel great. I feel really good as a result of it. My mood is more stable. My energy is more consistent. I don't get any joint pain, which I used to get with alcohol. Anger was a big one for me. I used to get this kind of like weird half to a 3/4 of a day of anger 2 days after I drunk. So generally I just feel better. So all I'm going to say is, yes, there's information out there that, you know, drinking a glass of wine has like polyphenols and antioxidants. While that's true, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should drink it. And I know for a lot of people that's used as a justification. It's like, oh, it's got antioxidants in it. But it's like, but so do other foods. And we have to always measure up the downsides compared to the upsides. Yes, there might be some antioxidants in wine, but there's also alcohol. It's also a toxin. There's also, what's the word? It's the compounds that make an alcohol darker. Begins with C. No, it's not catechins. Anyway, so if you Googled it, so basically what it means is, generally speaking, you will get more of a hangover if you drink an alcohol that's kind of darker. So think red wine, think whiskey, think scotch. That's the general rule of thumb. So alcohols like vodka, gin, white wine, you generally wouldn't get as much of a hangover with them because of that impurity. It's really annoying me, I forgot it now, it begins with C. Anyway, my point here is alcohol, I think, is one of those things that we are so normalized as a result of it, you know, is cultural and societal integration, that we kind of just don't think about it. And I know that before I went alcohol free, I was like, well, I don't drink a lot, so it's not really a problem. I just never really challenged it because I saw so many people that drunk so much more than me. And yes, I felt it negatively affected them, but I was like, well, I drink a lot less and it's okay. And now I've gone completely alcohol free. I've got a very different perspective of it. I'm like, interesting. And that's why I'm a huge fan of taking periods of time where you consume none of a certain compound. So if you went sugar free, alcohol free, caffeine free, like who knows, you get to really lean into what that experience is without that compound. And you get to challenge initially the why of why you would consume it. Like so many people consume alcohol as a relaxant, as a stress relieving tool. And I'm like, well, do you want that? Is that who you want to be? That your first tool, your initial thought is to turn to alcohol to relieve your stress rather than having a more productive and better second order consequence tool for dealing with stress? I know I don't want to be that person. And I think a lot of people listening to this feel that's probably not as productive a habit as it could or maybe should be. So I'm a huge fan of challenging alcohol. So that's point number 6, that the research is generally showing that alcohol doesn't have any real benefits to us. We just really clutch onto a few small benefits like the antioxidants in wine for consuming it. Now, number 7, fasting. So fasting's exploded in popularity again. I remember when I first got into the fitness industry in like 2005, when we were getting to like 2007, 8, 9, it was really picking up. And I think the original OG back in the day, which was the 16-9, was it Oliver? Anyway, but he was the person that coined 16-8, sorry, 16-9 isn't 24 hours in a day, is it? Come on, Ben. And I remember it grew in popularity as essentially a tool to regulate body composition. And back then, not enough people talked about calories and its value in body composition. So much of the fitness industry was built on ways to control calories inadvertently, like going low carb, going paleo, doing Weight Watchers, doing fasting. Now, fasting generally seems to have some mild health benefits. The issue is all of these mild health benefits have been colossally overblown. So people will say, if you fast, you detox your body of all these different things. Now, the thing with fasting is it gives your body like space and time. So if you don't eat, your body gets to send blood to different areas of the body to do different things, and that can generally often be a positive thing. It's like sleep, for example. If you eat quite close before going to bed, a lot of your blood is in your stomach helping the processes of digestion to break down the food, and you often find that you don't get as good a quality sleep because you've eaten close before bedtime. But if you can allow a lot of that big digestive action to take place, and the food's now starting to kind of move into the intestines, you will generally find your body's getting a better, deeper night's sleep because blood is diverted elsewhere for more restorative things to happen in your sleep cycle. And it can be said the same for when we fast. So when we fast, we're basically giving our body a bit of a break from the norm of always processing food to kind of do other things. Now, I think the macro benefit of this is allowing people to kind of have like flexibility of their kind of daily nutrition, to have that kind of in their, that kind of train of thought in their head that like, it's okay to skip a meal. It's okay to go for a prolonged period of time without eating. Like, it's perfectly normal and healthy. And if you think about it in kind of more ancestral hunter-gatherer times, it would have been perfectly normal for us to maybe not eat for half a day while we go out and like look for food, forage it, kill it, whatever, go home, cook it, and maybe have a feast. And it might have been perfectly normal to get up, go, oh, I've got no food, I'm going to go out today and hunt for it. And then they come back and you cook it and you have a big feast. So feast and kind of forage and feast might have been a really kind of key thing back in the day. We might not have always had the food available, but the problem is we live in a highly food available world now and we eat all the time, and that's kind of a bit of a narrative in the world of nutrition of, you know, eat regularly, eat balanced meals. And I'm not saying that's not important, I think it is, but I think there's also value in just saying, actually, I might go half a day without eating today. And when I feel overall have a good diet, it becomes a lot easier. So I find, and this is purely anecdotal, I would also say that other clients that I've worked with have experienced this. If you eat lower carb, I find it's generally a lot easier to go for a long time without a meal, because it's that meal's influence on your blood glucose is very mild, very minor. So you don't get this kind of big drop in your blood glucose. So if you eat a really low carb meal, your blood glucose goes up a little bit and then just sort of slowly comes down. And I find drifting into not eating for a while actually quite easy. But if I have a really carby meal, like if I wanted to not eat for a while, I would literally feel like I can't do it because I can really feel my blood sugar just like dropping right through the floor. So on the whole, I think fasting is a positive thing. I think it's quite a liberating thing to have. It's kind of, you know, allows us to say, do you know what? Today I'm going to get up, I'm going to have a glass of water, you know, whatever, coffee. I'm just going to get on with my day and I'm going to eat when it's convenient later. And I just think that gives a lot of freedom, and it just seems that there's a bit of nice positive research around kind of autophagy, apoptosis. Now, please don't allow that to be blown up. I think it's generally overblown in a lot of nutrition circles, but there's going to be some nice little nudges there. And it's generally, from what I see in the research, because the body is just being given space to allow other processes to happen in the body. So number 8, and I think this is actually a big hidden one that is not talked about enough in the world of nutrition, and that is your culinary skills. To eat healthily over a long period of time, you need to keep mixing up your nutrition, right? If you were someone that, you know, if I gave you a bag of potatoes and you only knew how to boil them, mash them, roast them, you might get a bit bored with eating potatoes. But if you were able to roast and mash them, boil and roast and mash them, but then also turn them into this like beautiful paprika Spanish potatoes, and then you're able to add certain herbs to them, and you're able to like dice them and put feta cheese in it. And let's just say that you knew 15 different amazing potato recipes. How much easier and more enjoyable does it make living and eating healthily over a long period of time? You know, if I was to put a nutrition plan in front of you and I was like, chicken this, porridge that, blah, blah, blah. And over time, if I didn't give you more of those meals or like another plan, I found as a nutritionist back in the day when I used to work with clients that people would kind of panic and be like, Ben, I need a new diet plan, like I need new meals. And I was always like, no, we need to now go through the process of teaching you how to cook good, healthy food, because I'm not going to be there every week to write you a meal plan. I need to give you a framework. I need to teach you what healthy eating looks like. And then I need to empower you to be able to cook chicken 10 different ways, cook beef 10 different ways, cook potatoes 10 different ways, cook tofu 10 different ways, cook green beans 5 different ways, because that makes it exciting. And I think you have to constantly build on it. And I think if you embrace the journey of food, the nourishment that food gives you, the connection that food gives you between other people when you cook for other people, you hugely value it. And one of the things that we do is we try and cook one new dish every week, just one new dish. We try and do it from having like a kid's perspective and, getting our kids to try new food, but also for us. Like, it's very easy to fall into the habit of eating the same foods all the time, but it's exciting cooking new foods. And I know that it's not always the easiest thing to do because it takes a bit more time and brain power to cook new food. So it might be that you choose an evening a week to cook something new where you've got more time. Like a Friday night is a great example. And I think it's also a very kind of connecting and loving exchange by being like, I might say to my wife, hey, this Friday I'm going to cook. Like 7 o'clock, we'll sit down, we'll enjoy a nice meal. I'm cooking X, we've never had it before. And it's something that you really appreciate and value, to have that time put into nourishing, the other person with something new and kind of exploring new tastes, new ideas. So I think that's just one way you can kind of go about it. And the great thing is when you try new things, you can kind of put it on a list. Like, I quite often put lists of meals on a fridge door. So when I'm doing my food order for the week, I can be like, right, I'm going to cook this, and this week. And it's like there. So I don't have to sit there doing the online food order going like, right, what do I want to eat this week? And you're sitting there sort of searching your brain for that list of recipes that you've got, but you're kind of drawing a blank, and then you just go back and revert towards the foods that you've always eaten because it's quick, it's easy, it's just there in your head. And that's why I'm a big fan of, creating new meals, making a list, making it a habit, buying the food, doing food prep, because I think it's exciting. And I do think a lack of culinary skills and making food exciting holds people back long term from eating well, because it doesn't stay an exciting part of your life. And we eat lots every day, right? So make it enjoyable, make it nourishing. Number 9, food sensitivities. This is also a big one. It's important. So when you're sensitive to a food, so that means you eat a food and there's some kind of physiological reaction, a negative one. What that's essentially leading to in broad terms is inflammation in the body. Now, there are many common intolerances. Wheat is a big one. Gluten is a big one. Dairy is a big one. The nightshades family is a big one. There's other common food sensitivities, and it's important to explore, what that might mean for you. You can just listen to your body, take a food diary and go, oh, I got bloated today at 3 p.m. What did I have for lunch? And then you can write down what you had for lunch. And then when you get bloated again, you can kind of write it down. You might be like, oh, I had eggs on both of those lunch times. That's interesting. Let me have eggs once more just to confirm that. Got bloated again. Let's take eggs out and see if my bloating goes. And sometimes it can be as easy as that. You can also do tests like finger prick test. You can also do energy testing, which I quite like to do tests and then confirm it with energy testing because it's really easy to do, and then go away and exclude those foods out of my diet and see if the symptoms kind of go. My point here is if you eat foods on an ongoing basis that you have an issue with, you're constantly giving your body a low level of inflammation. And that's not going to cause your body a problem like on a day-to-day basis, but think how that might build over time. Having high levels of inflammation in the body is not a good thing. So if you get bloated every day, look to solve that. Like, why would you want to be bloated every day? Why would you want to be tired? That's another common symptom from eating foods that you're sensitive to. You get tired very easily, like 2 hours after a meal. So bloating, tiredness, skin issues, gut and digestive upsets, kind of brain fog. These are all classic symptoms of food intolerances, and I would implore you that if you think this is you, to explore it, because I am all about optimal human performance, and you are not going to be an optimal human, an awesome human, if you've got inflammation circulating in your body because you keep eating bread every day and you know you're gluten intolerant. Like, make the bold move to say, no, this is enough. I don't want to be bloated, or I don't want to have brain fog, or I don't want to feel tired. I'm going to really do the work here. And do you know what it is? Do you know what? It is a bit annoying because it does take quite a long period of time. You have to wait, you have to eat foods, you have to exclude them, you have to write things down. And I get that it's a pain, but this is your health we're talking about. And I've seen with myself and so many clients that food sensitivities hold people back. And because the reaction that someone gets from a food that they're sensitive to is not major, like, most people can live with being bloated. Like, it's not bad enough that you have to go to bed or it holds you back from your day-to-day life. It just makes you uncomfortable. It's just frustrating. It's just not nice. So a lot of the time, because of that, people don't do something about it, because it's like, well, it's not really bad and it's an effort to change, so I won't change. But I would really implore you to look at this, because you're not going to be optimal. Your health isn't going to be optimal. And on a long-term basis, there's no knowing what that level of low-grade inflammation every day is going to do to your health in the future. Number 10, basic supplementation. So we know from the research that there's certain supplements that can be really beneficial, and it's largely because of three reasons. Firstly, there's common deficiencies that we see in a population-wide basis, and that's because, for example, we don't get enough sun, so we need a good amount of vitamin D. A lot of people don't eat enough omega-3, so we have to supplement with an omega-3. A lot of people exercise a lot, and our magnesium is a bit lower in foods now because of farming practices, so it's beneficial to have kind of magnesium in the diet. The second thing is how we live our lives now. A lot of people are quite stressed. A lot of people put a lot of pressure on the body. A lot of people do a lot, and that puts more pressure on certain nutrients. For example, magnesium is a great one. Magnesium is heavily used in the ATP energy cycle. So if you train a lot, you're using more magnesium. So the government might say, yeah, you need 350 for a woman and 410 for a man, I think it is, milligrams a day. But if you're training really hard, you're going to need a lot more because you're using more in the ATP energy cycle. So 410 for a man, 350 for a woman might not be enough because of the stress that you are placing on your body. So there's then a different need for that person for certain nutrients, and that's when the value again of supplements comes in. And then third is like overall food quality. We can't lie. There's good data out there that some of the foods that we now eat are not the same quality as they were 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years ago. And that's a lot down to the soil quality and what we're doing with our farming kind of practices. The animal quality, we're eating a lot of animals that are not free range. They're no longer organic. They don't eat a lot of grass. Like, all of this impacts nutrient quality, and it might only be 10 to 20%, and for some nutrients it's even more, but you do that over time and you do that across your diet all day, and actually that adds up to being significant. And that's where we can take confidence in the research when it says actually buying and getting a really good quality multivitamin would be good for your health. There's a new research study that came out recently, I think it's called the Cosmos study, that showed that on average people that take a multivitamin live on average 3 years more by a reduction in all-cause mortality. Like, that's pretty significant. Similar to fish oil, a recent study came out around omega-3, and there's this thing called the omega-3 index. Now, on average in the UK, omega-3 index of us is around 4%. We ideally want it to be about 8%. If it's 8%, we have a 5-year all-cause mortality life extension as a result of having an omega-3 index of 8%. But you need to be eating around 4 portions of oily fish a week for that to happen. And for a lot of people, that doesn't happen. So the value of an omega-3 supplement, again, then comes into play. And then there's other things that we can take like creatine, etc. And that's where I'm going to shamelessly promote Awesome Supplements, because Awesome Supplements was built purely on the premise of trying to give people products that are proven by the research to deliver a result. So when it comes to supporting your health, we have we have Awesome Defense and Awesome Omega to provide that broad spectrum, high dose multivitamin and omega-3. And then we've got Awesome Joints for curcumin, people that get joint pain and want to improve their recovery, alongside other supplements. And it's not me kind of trying to... No, I'll backtrack there. The only reason that really came about is because of like my interest in optimal human performance. You know, when I talk about sleep, I talk about it from an optimal perspective. When I talk about nutrition, I try and talk about it from an optimal perspective. When I talk about supplements, I talk about it from an optimal perspective. So there's loads of arguments online that people will say, oh, you don't need supplements because you can get everything you need from food. Well, you can to an extent, but first thing is many people don't, because the data wouldn't show that we're getting all these nutrient deficiencies. Secondly, we're not getting some of the quality of the food that we need to get from our farming practices now. And thirdly, it's just the way that we're living our lives. Some people are more stressed. Some people are exercising loads. Some people don't eat well consistently. So that means that we then need to get our micronutrition from a reliable source, because we might not be getting the high quality nutrition that we need every day from food. So I'll stop there. There we have it. That was part 2. I've just been through alcohol, fasting, culinary skills, food sensitivities, and basic supplementation. And last show I went over calories, Mediterranean diet, high protein, carbs and fats, and hydration. If you've got any questions, please shoot them to me over on social media. I'm a completely open book. I love being challenged. I love extra questions. I love commentary that allows me to build on the conversation for kind of next episodes and stuff. Next week, I think it's either I'm talking about alcohol, or there's a sleep special where I'm going to be talking about sleep and how to optimize it on all levels. And all I would ask you to do is 2 things after today. 1, if you've not checked out Awesome Supplements yet, then please do. And please check out, from a baseline health perspective, Awesome Defense and Awesome Omega. And if you have not yet downloaded the Awesome Blueprint, then do click the link in the description here. And I'd love to see a tag on social media. If you've enjoyed this, please share it on like your Instagram stories or whatever. Tag me in it, say hi Ben. That would be really awesome. Otherwise, I hope these 10 science-backed nutrition principles have helped guide your life in the world of nutrition. Keep being an awesome human. I will speak to you very soon.